Hello and welcome to the 55th episode of the BTF podcast. That is the number one podcast for people who probably should talk about something other than football. Coming at you live on YouTube and also you may be listening on Spotify and all other good podcast provider platforms. We have a quartet today here on the live stream. I'm joined by Johnny Mills. How are you, John?
Not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Just getting ready for. Well, let's not even mention it today. What's happening on Thursday? We'll try and keep that out of the show. I'm also joined by Tom Nuttall Jones there in his Liverpool shirt. Tom, are you good?
No, Neil, yes, I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. And finally, by Mr. Greg TMR, Greg Hollands. What have you got behind you there, Greg?
I've got the greatest man that's ever stepped foot on the planet.
Mr. G. Bale there, who, of course, had a fantastic week, and we will be talking about that later in the show. First up on the show, we're going to talk about the early kickoff today, the 5:30 kickoff between Fulham. It's over here. Don't even know what side it's on. Fulham and West Brom. This game ended 2-0 to Fulham. Goals from Bobby Reed and Ola Aina. Guys, did you see the second goal? Ola Aina's goal, the absolute rocket that went in.
Even the build-up play was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
A back heel. There's like a back heel 30 seconds before the goal that just set the tone, and then just only went up from there.
Yeah. 3 points in the bag for Fulham. It puts us up into 17th place. Now, I'm sure, Tom, you would probably accept the same if the Premier League was to end today and for them to lock in all the places of the teams. We would be pretty happy with that. 17th place. I think we've got 4 points in total now. And obviously that first win in the bag.
Greg's agreeing as well.
What's that?
Greg's agreeing.
Yeah. Well, for Spurs, second place in the league.
First time we've been in the top four since May 2019.
He's counting the days.
Yeah, like on a prison wall.
Yeah, with a little chalk. A little piece of chalk. I mean, I won't spend too long talking about the Fulham game, but I mean, first of all, I would probably say it was a good performance by Fulham. It did feel a lot like a kind of a high quality championship game, and I think there certainly were still a lot of problems, a lot of unforced errors and turnovers, which unfortunately for West Brom they're just not good enough to capitalize on. But I think, had the opponent been better today, we may have struggled a little bit more. But some real positives in there as well. But I was just like, my question, I guess, would be, I won't go on too much of a monologue about it, but like at the moment we're only playing Mitrovic, Kearney, and I think today Harrison Reed played 45 minutes. Bobby Reed, actually, to be fair, played about 60 minutes, and he was in the team last year. But should a team that gets promoted have to completely switch out that many players, or is that just a red herring or a red flag rather, that we're probably not in the best position to come into the Premier League? Do you think? And also to add on to that, and I'm going to come to you first, John. Is that demoralising for the actual squad? So there's players like Michael Hector who are just kind of on the scrap heap now. Tim Ream, Joe Bryan, they're probably not going to reclaim their places in that team. What would that do to kind of squad morale in the short term, at least?
It's a tricky one because you see this a lot, don't you? You see names are not springing to mind at the moment, but you see teams where in the championship they've got like a squad and it's a championship squad, right? And they do well, they get promoted, and then they get promoted to the Premier League, and then half of the squad, if not more, don't play. I think it works if the players you bring in do the business and you end up staying up. You get a good win maybe against one of the top 6, as it were. And then everyone starts thinking, right, we can stay in the league. When it doesn't work and those players you bring in don't perform because maybe they haven't played in the Premier League either. You've maybe brought them from, the Dutch league or somewhere, and they don't perform. That's when I think you get this sort of unhappy camp where the players are, the original players are like, oh, hold on a minute, I got you here. Now you're playing, this John Doe over here who's not performing any better than what I would be performing. And then I think that's when you start to get unrest and things like that. So I think when the results are working, you can't be unhappy. If you're getting the results and you're not in the squad, you've got to be a team player. You've got to be happy, and you've got to knuckle down and try and force your way into the squad, take your opportunities in the League Cup, etc. But yeah, when it's not working, it could go sour really quickly.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that from Greg and Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to when I was working on the Championship, and the one year that I was working on it, the 2 teams that went up, one of them was Bournemouth. And Bournemouth got promoted from the Championship with a League One squad, and then hardly made any additions to it when they're in the Prem, so they kind of went up all the way up. But I think they are almost the exception. They found this team of players that knew each other so well, and they just basically kept the same 11 from League One and then all the way up to the Prem, and only added like 1 or 2 players to the starting 11 through that time. But that's a massive exception. I think you're always going to have to try and improve the squad when you come up. And also, like, the managers, obviously, got that Premier League money. Suddenly, he's going to, like, his eyes are lighting up on it. Like, anyone's going to be the same. I think last year, Villa got a lot of stick because they just completely revamped the squad and only just survived. I think when Leeds this summer spent a lot of money, everyone was like, oh, they're doing a Villa, they're going to struggle. But it just completely depends on the business that you do.
Greg?
Yeah. I think that there's no set way of doing it. I think the levels are such a world apart. But then you see, the system at Sheffield United last season did brilliantly. I don't think they had a particularly busy summer, not that I knew. And now look at them in this season. It just seems to have absolutely petered out for them. I think that it can be a bit bittersweet if you're coming up from the Championship to the Premier League and some players just aren't up to it, and you've just got to measure up what's better for the team or your own career. I can imagine it being a tough predicament for sure for any manager, but this win's huge for Fulham. I think the spirit will be lifted. Scott Parker, it's a big weight off of his chest for sure.
I guess another question as well is we're up into 17th now with Burnley, Sheffield United and West Brom below us. Can we pull off what some people I think have thought was the impossible and actually survived this year? Just a yes or a no. Actually, not a can, it's a will. Will we pull it off? Because I think the can is obvious. We obviously can. But will we pull that off? And I'll come back. I'll go John, Tom, and then Greg. So John?
One word answer. No.
Yeah, no. Tom?
No.
And Greg?
Sorry, Dan.
Fuck yeah. Well, we'll come back to this later in the season, and we'll see who was right and who was wrong.
It depends if Ollie stays in a job at United. He might take that space for you. He might just.
You think he'll come down as he maybe will be our star striker?
That's an amazing segue.
That is a good segue on to what was probably the standout fixture of the weekend. If you saw the fixtures, certainly going into the weekend, you would have said, Man United, Arsenal at Old Trafford. This is one of the kind of the classic blockbusters of the Premier League era. You would have been really excited for it. You would have thought maybe there'll be goals flying in left, right, centre, some good attacking football. Didn't quite play out that way. John, tell us a little bit about what happened in the game. What was the result?
Well, Aubameyang, he's getting a lot of stick. He hadn't scored in a few games, but when it mattered, the big players, they step up, they take those penalties, and they don't miss. The game was. I wouldn't say it was disappointing. I watched it. It was quite tactical. I think it was better than the Man United Chelsea game, I must say. But it was a little bit of a standoff where I think both teams. I think United didn't really want to lose the game. I think Arsenal dominated, but they also kind of didn't overcommit sometimes like they usually do, which I thought was good. I think they had good balance. I think Partey was excellent. El Neni looks like a £40 million signing now. You know,
Do you see that clip of him like chasing down the ball at the end, like 91st minute pressing?
Yeah. Yeah. Proper
impressive.
screening and pressing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think I was applauding that, I must say, because it was a good performance from Arsenal. I don't remember us being cut open. I don't remember being worried at all. When Cavani came on, I thought, oh, you can see it like written in the stars. You're like, oh bloody hell, like he'll get the equalizer. But the way they played when he came on, they just looked disjointed. They just looked lost, and I just thought, no, Arsenal want to see this one out. I tell you when I did really worry is when I saw Mustafi. And I couldn't find my phone, and I was going to put it in the WhatsApp group. At that time, I was like, it's going to be 1-1. Mustafi's coming on. But I lost my phone briefly, so I never said it. But yeah, when I saw him running on, I thought, oh no, penalty. He's going to give a penalty away.
It was an odd substitution. Who did he come on for at that point?
It was late as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
was it Tierney or someone? Or?
No, it was an attacking player. It was Aubameyang.
Okay.
Yeah, Aubameyang got yellow carded.
Oh yeah, because he walked off. Yeah.
Yeah, he took his time. And I was just like, oh, man, like, there's no threat now going forward. So United are just going to be ultra attack. I don't like that substitution that managers make. Obviously, they get paid millions of pounds more than me. They're more highly qualified. But that's just a substitution I really hate when, you know, say you're trying to hold on to a 1-0, like, say, use Greg with, say, Spurs, and you take off, say, Son and Kane or something and bring on two defenders. That just says, come and attack us.
Yeah, we put on Ben Davies with like 5 minutes left on centre back. It was like, what the fuck do you think they're doing?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't like that. But no, overall, I can't be disappointed. I think the standout players for me were Thomas Partey and Mohamed El Neni. I thought that they really bossed that midfield. They made Pogba look like he cost 12 pence. You know, I think they bossed the game. And I think we deserved it. I think anything other than the 3 points for Arsenal that day would have been unfair.
Tom, do you agree with that? And particularly comments about Pogba and the Man United midfield at the moment?
Yeah, I didn't see much of the game, unfortunately, but I think definitely the conversations that I've seen about Pogba recently and the way that he's playing, for a player with such pedigree and such obvious quality, and who they paid so much for, you know, he's a World Cup winner, and yet they've managed to spend how long has he been at the club? Like 3-4 years, and like since he's returned, and they're still not quite sure how to get the best out of him. They've put another, you know, obviously really talented player in Fernandes next to him, and now they've got some sort of like Gerrard Lampard situation where they're like, can they play together? How do they complement each other? You know, they're talking about putting Pogba out on the wing. Again, like very similar to like the Gerrard Lampard situation of old. And it's just like, how do you get into this situation when you spent so much on a player that he's still a question mark? He obviously is talented, so you kind of have to go back to the manager.
John's just saying his internet's dropping out a bit at the moment. There he is. He's back.
I'm back.
Yeah, no.
What happened there? Did I freeze?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, okay,
I completely agree about that. Like that, you've got a bit of a Gerrard Lampard, or there is a bit of a Gerrard Lampard situation between those two. And I was actually quite surprised when he took Fernandes off and left Pogba on, because I would have done the other. I would have done the opposite. I thought Pogba just didn't look with it in that game. And this guy, you know, he's such an exciting player when he's at the top of his game, and he's clearly one of the, you know, probably at least top 10 midfielders in the world, probably higher maybe, if he's playing at the absolute peak of his game. But at the moment, he just, I don't know, he looked disinterested, and I hate to say that about players. When, you know, you don't know what, it's very easy to put like a mentality onto a player, just from
nobody
like
likes
watching
a body
him.
language expert.
Yeah, exactly. But I did think he just didn't quite look up for it. And I guess if you look at his opposite number, in that game, which was, well, maybe El Nene, but probably Thomas Partey, who I like the fact that he's wearing Thomas on the back of his shirt as well. I think that's new. I don't think he had Thomas on the back of his Madrid shirt, but but I may be wrong. Thomas Partey had a very good game. I think he got a lot of praise from Roy Keane. We've lost John again very briefly. But Greg, is Thomas Partey suddenly kind of looking worth that money, that £45 million price tag?
I think he can be, yeah. I think he's going to be a really important player for Arsenal. I think he's a great bit of business for sure. It shows the ambition that Arteta's got. I think that Arteta could be quite a exciting project. I think I just want to pick up on something John said earlier about United's attitude towards the game. He said that United looked like they didn't want to lose that game. And I think that perfectly surmises the whole attitude of United. Then they're looking a bit toothless in the league. We can say that. I think the attitude is now just, if we can, secure top four, but just don't lose this game. Just don't lose that next game. This is not the United that we're used to. And I think it perfectly encapsulates that whole game, really.
Yeah. I actually felt sorry so Donny van de Beek got, maybe like 20 minutes in that game. And I was just thinking, like, you know, if you look at the movement in the Ajax team that he's come from, and the synergy between all the players and the passing style and the triangles and everything, like it's just not there at Man United at the moment. And I know in some games it might be the Europa League game in the week where they won 5-0. Yeah, sure, they played it off the park on that occasion, but there just doesn't seem to be a consistent Manchester United club brand or club, whatever, like playing style, and I think that's really holding them back at the moment, because pretty much, even down to, you'd say Leicester have a very clear playing style, Wolves have a very clear playing style, Crystal Palace have a very clear playing style, like 15, 16, 17, whatever teams in the Premier League have a clear game plan that you kind of, you know what it is, but also it's relatively unplayable. Whereas Manchester United, I couldn't really tell you what their playing style is. It's kind of give it to the player that might be on form that day, which could be Rashford on one occasion, could be Martial on one occasion, could be Fernandes. But I don't know. Like, there's a lot missing there, and it's certainly it's a troubling time. So that brings us on to the question. The big question is, and we've had this a couple of episodes ago. We discussed the same thing. Does Ollie keep his job still? Like, when what is too much? When is breaking point for between him and Ed Woodward, or him and the Glaziers, whatever? Like, whoever's making that decision, it's probably even him and Alex Ferguson. I would think Ferguson probably has a lot of say in that situation. And I'll come to the Liverpool fan here on the show, who probably, has as much interest in it as anyone else. But yeah, Tom, when is that breaking point? And, is there anything comparable in Liverpool's recent history as to like kind of where Man United are at the moment? Is there a time from Liverpool's last 15 years that you can remember, like they kind of hit a brick wall and they're just not going anywhere?
I think Man United are reliving Liverpool's like 1990s. I think there's perhaps in terms of the personnel in charge at the moment, Solskjaer, you'd compare it more to the Kenny Dalglish's second spell, and the sort of reluctance to get rid of someone who's thought of very fondly at the club.
Yeah,
but I remember seeing this great clip online of a Liverpool fan and Man United fan talking, and the Liverpool fan said, "You just don't understand how easily it can happen. Like, once you start falling off the top, you just assume you're too big for it to happen to you, but it can, and that is what's happening to United." And it was heartwarming earlier for you to say that they played a European game and assumed it was in the Europa League, because that's kind of the level that they seem to be at now. It's just like,
it was Champions League.
Yeah, Champions League.
Who was the opponent? Who did they play in the week?
Leipzig this week.
Leipzig, okay, which is a good top of the Bundesliga.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to them. I think those results in Europe, they're sort of punching to a more traditional Man United weight.
Yeah.
When they're getting those results against PSG and Leipzig, and I think those results will keep Solskjaer going if he can keep those up. I mean, they won't put up with him being 15th for too long, but while he's smashing it in Europe, I think definitely it'll last a little bit longer. As I was saying in the group chat to you guys the other day, I mean, as much as I'm enjoying it, it's wild to watch the likes of Neville and Keane defend him. And it is really taking the pressure off Solskjaer. Long may it continue, to be fair, but I don't think it will.
Yeah, I mean, John, is there anyone, in a hypothetical situation or a almost probable situation that Solskjaer is out of a job by, let's say, January or maybe a little bit after that? Is there anyone that you can think of that might be kind of worthy of that job or that would take on that job at this point?
It's got to be Pochettino.
Yeah, Poch. Would that be all
right?
right?
That's what the fans are calling for.
But okay, my thing with that is, no, he would be perfect. No one asks the question: would Pochettino want that job? Does he want that job? Does he want to deal with the board up top? I mean, Ollie's a yes man, so he's going along with it. He's absolutely fine. They got rid of Jose because he was causing problems with them and chatting shit about them as he does. Pochettino, he can do a lot with very little, as we've seen at Southampton and indeed Tottenham. I mean, he's doing the Monday Night Football today. He looks good. He looks happy. He doesn't need that. I mean, he wants to get back into management, but I mean, I don't know if he'd want the Manchester United job. It's a bit of a poison chalice at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a huge personality, similar to Klopp being a huge personality coming in and changing a club like I feel like he has done with Liverpool. Would you say United are in a worse position than maybe Liverpool were under Brendan Rodgers before Klopp came in? Tom?
Yeah, I think they are worse because at least under Rodgers we'd nearly won the league a couple of years before, and then obviously the wheels came off completely.
Yeah.
Whereas Man United haven't looked anywhere near since Ferguson left. I mean, obviously they finished second under Mourinho, and everyone laughed when he said that it was his greatest achievement. And actually, it's looking truer and truer. So yeah, to be honest, I think they probably are in a worse position.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, it's apples and oranges, isn't it? But
yeah, it's not actually in the in our show notes for today, but the president-elect, or the guy that's sort of going to take over, one of the guys that's running for the presidency of Barcelona. Did you see his comments about bringing Pep back in to manage Barcelona next year?
And by the summer, I called it last week.
Think he could be tempted?
Oh, 100%. Of course he will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Those presidential things are wild. It's like they actually have to do a manifesto and say what they're going to sign and who they're going to bring in. So you always get these little things of oh, I'm going to bring in Beckham, I'm going to bring in Ronaldinho. Obviously, that's how that happened.
John Aldinho.
It's probably completely empty. It's probably completely empty.
That was my bid. I haven't quite managed to put it through yet, but
single vote.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I was running for president, that's for Barca, that's probably the first thing I'd say. I'm going to bring in Pep. So
yeah.
I'd see Pep going and then Pochettino sliding into the City one, and fans will fucking rage, and I'm so ready for it. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that one. Next up, we're going to talk about the Liverpool game, which was on Saturday. A 2-1 victory over West Ham. They did go 1-0 down in this game. Little bit of kind of shaky ground early on, but they pulled it back to take the 2-1 win in the end. Diego Jota scored the winner. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Had one disallowed just before, and then.
Yeah. He's looking like another great Klopp signing at the moment. Happy with him so far, Tom?
Yeah, I don't think anyone thought what's that about completely when we signed him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the fee was a little bit high, but it's already looking more and more like it was a reasonable price to pay. And now people are as much as I love him, people are sort of clamoring for him to break up the famous front three and get Firmino out.
Do it.
I mean, he's looked. I love Firmino, and I will still go with what a lot of Liverpool fans will defend him with, which is that despite his lack of goals, he obviously does a lot for the team, and brings Mane and Salah into the game a lot. But there's no reason why Jota can't do that as well, and obviously he's got the goals to boot. So you got to have a meritocracy in your squad and bring people in who are on form, and that's what he's doing. And another player I'd like to talk about is Xherdan Shaqiri. Came on. I think the way that he plays and the way that we play, I don't think he's ever going to be a starting option for us. I don't see him being able to press for 90 minutes, and probably the majority of games that he started for us, he has looked pretty ropey. But as an impact player, he's just been sensational in the last couple of games when we've been struggling, one in the Champions League in midweek and now this one. Pretty much doing the same identical sort of reverse pass. One was like a little pre-assist for Trent, and then in this game, just through the legs, great vision, and just what a great option to have off the bench, and really glad that he stayed as well.
Yeah, I really rate Shaqiri. Isn't he one of the few players with a World Cup hat trick or something the only player with a World Cup hat trick in the Premier League? I'm not sure. But yeah, I know he's one of those odd trivia things, isn't he? For
good trivia guy.
A hat trick in a World Cup, but yeah, certainly. I think you could say they're kind of riding out a bit of a storm at the moment, Liverpool, in terms of the injury troubles you've got. But yeah, back on top of the league. Greg, have you been impressed with Liverpool lately, or you think there's some frailty there that Tottenham can capitalise on?
I've not been surprised with Liverpool. I mean, they are a team that to the 90th minute you're going to have to work against. I think that there could be frailties there. I think that there's a lot in that article I sent in a group chat a couple of weeks ago about the coffee theory. I think we have to put it as in the podcast. The last 2 years they've been on absolute fire because of caffeine and coffee, and maybe this season will be a bit of a fallow year. But I don't know. I think the Klopp mentality could definitely carry you through. But I think that Van Dijk at the back, missing him will be huge. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in January they go and spend on a centre back. They can. So, but yeah, no, Tottenham, we're winning it all, lad.
John, any comments on that?
In his dreams, mate. In his dreams.
There we go. We'll move on to the next game, which actually is Tottenham's 2-1 win against Brighton. So Tottenham go 1-0 up in this game. And then there was a pretty dodgy equaliser. Greg?
Yeah, so the problem is that the Harry Kane incident in the match and the one that followed the match, which I'm sure we'll get onto at some point, has sort of overshadowed how shit of a referee Graham Scott was in that game. It was a really bizarre game. We didn't particularly play very well. Gareth Bale, incredible goal, absolutely brilliant substitution there. The two penalty decisions... it wasn't a penalty, the second one, was it? Oh, it was, wasn't it? I missed it. It was a penalty.
Wait, the Brighton goal?
Brighton goal.
No, it was. I think it was an open play, but there was a foul.
Oh yeah, that was it. That was it. Sorry.
In the build-up.
I don't understand how he was a couple of meters in front of it, looking at the ball when it happened, and then had to go to VAR, and they suggested to go and watch the monitor, which is sort of a little bit of a, we've seen something in this, you go and check it. Stood there for about 6 years, and then gave the goal anyway. I don't really understand the thinking behind that. And I don't know, what do we all think about the Harry Kane incident? Do we think, first of all, my question to you all is that a foul? Is Harry Kane looking for it? And was it inside the box?
This is Harry Kane and Adam Lallana?
Yes, yeah.
Is this what led to the penalty?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll come to Tom on this one because I think Tom's probably got more to say about it than me.
Yeah, I mean, you're always taught in those, or like just from playing, from those situations where like one guy doesn't jump and the other guy jumps. It's the guy who stayed like on his feet who gives away the foul, because it's really dangerous to let someone go over you like that. And that's something that he has done more than once. And like that's not important in this situation, but I don't think it should have been a foul. I think it should have been a foul the other way, because it is incredibly dangerous to have someone go over the top of you, and potentially like fall on your head or neck.
Yeah.
I've only seen one angle of it, so I can't really weigh in much on whether it's in the box or not. But yeah, from the views I've seen, it should have definitely been a foul the other way.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, the views I've seen, he's playing for it. He's playing for a foul, whether in the box or out of the box. And yeah, no, it's clever play, because it's down to interpretation of the ref. And I think a lot of the times the refs do get that wrong. You see it a lot where the player doesn't jump. He kind of just backs in, sort of leans over a bit. And then it looks as if from the referee's angle or point of view that the defender or the player that's jumped for the ball has used that player bending over as leverage for height, when really he's just looking at the ball jumping and the player's backed off into him. Fair play to him. I mean, the only negative is, I mean, if he keeps doing it, someone's going to really hurt themselves. But I mean, listen, I'm not going to be complaining if he's doing that at a World Cup or a Euros, I must say. But if he does that to Gabriel, the North London derby or something, I'll be driving to his house.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's if it's a player safety issue, probably at the root of it. I think those types of, gamesmanship things of winning free kicks, and there are certain areas where you can back into a player and maybe they're only jumping like a foot off the ground, but when Lallana's literally like 3 or 4 feet in the air, if that was in rugby, that's what my kind of comparison would be. If that was in rugby, that would probably be given as a yellow card and like a sin bin offence for Harry Kane, for kind of dangerously putting another player at risk, and it would be the same call in like ice hockey or something like that as well. So I don't know. Maybe there is some room to kind of review those instances, and I would like to see more retrospective action taken in the Premier League for stuff like that. Whether there was like a player safety board or committee or something like that actually could retrospectively take action on things like that, where in the heat of the moment it's quite difficult to see all those things, and when the referee's over there looking at a little monitor on the side of the pitch, does he see the eyes looking at Lallana before he goes in? Does he see exactly where it is? All of this stuff. Whereas actually, if you can go over those things and maybe issue a 1-game ban or a fine or some sort of charitable donation or something, like you can slowly edge those things out of at least the top flight. You're never going to get them out of like all the way down to grassroots like in any time soon, but sooner or later someone's going to land on their head and never play a game of football again. And if it was Harry Kane that happened to, Tom would probably argue that he wouldn't get much backlash from the media. He does get a little bit of an easy ride, maybe as England's star striker and number one. Greg, you mentioned an incident off the pitch with Harry Kane after.
Yeah, so basically on ESPN Sports broadcasting, it's two don't even know what to call them. Two, not professionals, not pundits, two people in front of cameras. Basically
our peers.
Our peers, Dan, definitely not our peers, but that. basically just slagging off Harry Kane. So it's now come out that it was leaked and it was to be edited out and not used because it was a shit take. And basically, this guy starts talking about Harry Kane because he's just entered into the top 10 Premier League goal scorers. Incredible celebration. I think you can put club politics apart. That is an incredible achievement for an athlete at that point. And as a pundit, you've got a sort of responsibility to present that and talk about the statistics and how good that is as a player. But this bloke, he sat there stooped. I've seen more energy from Levi, I'll tell you that much. He sat there.
Tom's face.
He's there.
And John's not interested.
I've frozen.
Oh, right.
Or internet.
And he's talking about it, and then he does a shit take, and he's like, "Oh no, forget that, do that again." And then what I think she says, "Why are we having to talk about this motherfucker again?" And then the producer says, "His voice is the only thing interesting about him." And then Mark Ogden says, "Should I do it in the style of Harry Kane? Should I do it in his voice?" And they all just sort of do a little bit of that. And I think that it's unprofessional as anything. And it's just, Harry Kane is a role model for English football players and English kids all over, but especially if you've got a speech impediment as Harry Kane or anything like that. And if you see that clip, that's very disheartening for you, I imagine. Then the icing on the cake is the apologies that they've put out, saying that it's a accidental clip that shouldn't have gone out, and we're truly sorry. You're not sorry you said. If you were sorry, you wouldn't have said it. You're sorry that it got leaked and people have seen it and they've seen the frauds that you are and the fact that you should resign right now, but you haven't. The woman tweeted out a thing, but she turned the comments off.
Yeah, turning comments off is always a bit of a
cowardly choice.
Yeah, grey area. You don't want to be doing that. It's an admission of guilt. Yeah, I mean it's not a pretty. It's not a good look for ESPN. And I'm sure that there'll probably be more fallout to come from that incident. But yeah, certainly within sports broadcasting, there's no place for that kind of blatant bullying or that's essentially what it is.
Kind of takes me back to I don't know if you guys remember the Marcel Desailly one. With
I was just going to say
Ron
that.
Atkinson.
Yeah, I mean, and he hasn't. That's the thing. I mean, it's obviously it's a bit more. It's I think most people say it's a bit more serious what he said, but the point is he hasn't worked in football. He hasn't really been a pundit ever again, and that was about 2003.
Yeah,
I think it was during Chelsea's first sort of run in the Champions League. So. Yeah, these I think it's a disgrace. No one would call me Harry Kane's biggest fan, but I fully defend him on this. It's a disgrace, and I think, as someone said in the group chat earlier, the number of people who would kill to be in that job, working for ESPN, and they're, just being so unprofessional, just completely wasting that
opportunity.
That prioritized privileged position that they're in. It's a disgrace.
Yeah. No, we'll see next week if there's any more movement on that story. Next up, then, we'll quickly mention we didn't really touch on Gareth Bale, but a great winner in that game, good header. Is he going to score? Is that the first of many? Can you see him starting games?
Yeah. He's starting on Thursday against Ludogorets, and I think that he'll be fired up for it.
Yeah.
I can see that him and Jose, I think I reckon that they've got quite a good relationship behind the scenes. They've spoken quite positively about each other this week, and I think that once that clicks, and I think that this is the first part of the click, we're going to see a very exciting Gareth Bale.
Yeah,
I'm worried. I am worried. I must say.
I feel like I've been finding myself. I mean, I've not been watching him. I've not been watching Spurs games in Ultra HD or anything like that. I'm watching it on pretty ropey. I'm watching it on TV. I'm not watching it on streams, but just in standard definition. I've actually been finding it quite difficult to spot Gareth Bale on the pitch. And I don't know whether this is because a lot of the players in the Madrid teams that he played in were a bit smaller. So you Modric, Isco, Marcelo. But I felt like Gareth Bale looks a lot smaller than he used to be. He looks like he's a good 4 or 5 inches smaller than I remember him. But I think it might just be that Spurs have a team of particularly kind of physical big players. But I don't know. I don't know whether if that's just a kind of a flippant observation or anyone else has sort of noticed that a little bit. He doesn't.
He is the only man I see on the pitch.
Yeah, you don't need height when you're levitating. Is that right? Yeah. Well,
I think it's the number 9. You're not used to seeing that.
Yeah, it might be. It's those two. They do say vertical stripes are slimming, so when you're wearing number 11, it might make you look a bit taller. So there we go. We'll move on from that. So we've got Everton are no longer top of the league. They're no longer the hot talk of the Prem. They fell victim to a 2-1 defeat at St James's Park to Steve Bruce's Bastards. A late goal from Calvert-Lewin, so really it was almost a 2-0 defeat. They kind of struggled, I think, since that Liverpool game. And John, I'll come to you first on this one. Is this just a blip in what is going to still be a season to remember, or are they kind of slipping back into their natural position in the Premier League, which is kind of a top mid-table team?
I think it's a blip. I'm backed Everton from the first few games when I saw them play, and I'm still backing them to at least get in the top 5. I think once they get Hammers back, I think he makes them tick. I know that he did get a lot of the plaudits initially, but then I think people started looking at Decore and Allen and stuff. But I think you need that player to just see a quick pass and to speed things up in the final third and to kind of see things that other players don't see. And that's what you pay your money for, I think he's got that. I just think Richarlison as well. I think Richarlison and James, I think when they come back, I think they'll click back into gear. I think Richarlison, if anyone watched Match of the Day, I think they covered it quite well, that without him, Calvert-Lewin doesn't have enough space. He creates a lot of space. He's almost like a sacrificial lamb for the team. Mm-hmm. He just runs all the channels and creates space for other people. And I think once he's back, I think they just look more dynamic with him in the team. And I think they got United next. I think that might be a tricky one. No matter what we say about United, they're not. They've got enough in their squad to kind of turn it around and perform in this game. So that could be a tough one for Everton. But I think, once Charlison comes back, and that I think they'll come good again.
Yeah, I certainly think he's the player that makes those runs in behind as well, and then you've got James is the guy that plays those balls through to find the guy running in behind. So without those two in the team, there's definitely a huge kind of dimension to their playbook is gone. You mentioned there Everton, Man United. That is the Saturday lunchtime game. Tom, what's your thoughts on Everton at this point? Obviously, it's probably quite nice for you to see them topple off the top of the league and be replaced by yourselves. But do you think they've still got quite a lot to offer this year in the Premier League?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to totally bomb or revert to an Everton of old. I do think that they have something extra this year. As John said, the loss of Richarlison. I think Richarlison during their good form in the first few games of the season almost flew under the radar because obviously they had all these new signings and also Calvert-Lewin, who was obviously already there but scoring all the goals. So it's quite nice to at least see that something that happened during the Merseyside derby has actually gone on to hurt Everton a little bit because obviously they have really missed him. But I could see them getting a result against United, 100%. Is it?
It's at Goodison Park.
It's at Goodison. Okay, yeah. So,
Sorry.
Obviously Ancelotti's an incredible manager, and they have just taken their squad up a notch. So yeah, I'd be very surprised if they didn't get back to what they were doing, at least something close to what they were doing pretty much straight away as soon as they got those two back.
Yeah. Obviously, James carrying an injury, a testicular injury apparently. Was it ever confirmed that that was a result of that Van Dijk challenge at the start of the derby, or did that aggravate a long ongoing injury, or what? Because I know Ancelotti had made comments about the fact that he had sustained the injury during that game. Anyone had anything confirmed there? Greg's got a bit of a smirk going on. Might just be the mention of testicles.
If I speak, I'm in trouble.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll move on. But yeah, Everton. Where do they sit now in the table? Is it fourth? Obviously, be behind Liverpool and Spurs. I'm just looking up the table. Third. So Everton on 13 points, the same as Wolves and Southampton. Southampton, I think, are getting a rough ride on the BTF podcast because we're not talking about them much, but they deserve they deserve as much coverage at the moment as Everton. They've been superb as of late, and it seems to be them and maybe Everton, but certainly Southampton seem to be a team that can steal points from anyone at the moment.
I think with Leicester obviously winning at half-time 2-0 at the moment, that's likely to change. Obviously, Everton drop into fourth probably.
Oh, and Spurs go down to third.
But still, I think, yeah, they're still within like 3 points of the top, so it's really tight.
Yeah. Very close Premier League this season. I hope it goes on that way as well. I hope we do have like this open, 10 teams can win it at Christmas situation that we're getting at the moment.
It won't be like last season. It won't be like a runaway. It'll probably be like lowest points tally and very, very close.
Yeah, I hope so. You mentioned there the late kickoff tonight, 2-0 at halftime to Leicester. Harvey Barnes and Yuri Tillmans. I think Jamie Vardy's picked up 2 assists. Harvey Barnes in my fantasy football team, so ka-ching. I also had 2 assists from Mitrovic this evening, which is also going to go down nicely. Let's move on to our next topic, which is that of Chelsea's defence and the fact that they're coming off the back now of 4 clean sheets. They've had the BTF bump. We slagged them off. We said that Frank doesn't know how to defend, that they're leaky at the back. And I think since those words were said on the BTF podcast, they've not conceded a single goal. Edouard Mendy, I think, is the first goalkeeper, or at least first Chelsea goalkeeper, to get 3 consecutive clean sheets in his first 3 Premier League games since Petr Cech back in 2004, who happens to be on the bench as well, or at least in the playing squad for Chelsea this year. Was interesting to see Branislav Ivanovic as well playing for West Brom today. Some of these players, you can't believe that they're actually kind of still around in the Premier League. I think Ivanovic is a few years younger than Petr Cech, mind. But yeah, has Frank kind of found the winning formula, and is that a kind of Mourinho strategy to lock everything down at the back and then build up from there? And do you think that's what he's going to be doing? I'll come to you, Greg, on this one.
I think Mendy's been a huge signing that they really needed. Kepa obviously just wasn't doing the job for them. What did he cost? 70 million? Kepa?
71, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I mean, fair play. You can't argue with 4 clean sheets. I mean, we've only recorded 1 this whole season out of 12 games we've played now.
Ditto.
Yes. So yeah, fair play. You can't argue with it. I think the test for Frank Lampard, I think this season he gets a bit of he's getting a free pass from a lot of Chelsea fans because he's the Chelsea man and all of that. But I think this season, as long as they're seeing little bits of progress like that, he'll tick over. But there will come a time where it's like, all right, clean sheets are all right, but where's the trophy you're coming from? I think it's a good start for him, though. As soon as he can get those players, because it's an incredible squad that he's got, really. As soon as he can get them to gel, I think they are a very dangerous prospect, and this is a really positive start for Chelsea fans to see.
How good, and I'm going to come to you on this, Tom, as you're sort of our resident German football expert. How good is Pulisic?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a lot of explosiveness. I think there's still some question marks over him. I think, to succeed at Chelsea, you have to be as good, if not better, than how good you have to be to succeed at Dortmund. And he was being kept out of the Dortmund team by the time he left by Sancho, which obviously no shame in that. But whether or not he's the finished product, I think quite a few of the games that he was succeeding in last season, he was like coming off the bench, a bit of an impact player, which I think sort of requires a different mentality and almost a different skill set to just being a regular starter and producing consistently. But he's definitely, you wouldn't call him a dud at this stage. So he's, the jury's out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean he's obviously got his injury problems. Picked up a knock or it wasn't even a knock. It was he sort of picked up on his own in the warm up for the Burnley game at the weekend. But yeah, they got weapons sort of throughout that team. Ziyech has kind of come, hit the ground running as such. John.
Yeah, no, he looked really good. Both in midweek and on Saturday. Looked really, really good. I think what Greg said is hitting the nail on the head. I think once they start gelling, I mean, they've got so much firepower, and you could already see signs of it. Yes, they played Burnley, who are a bit struggling at the moment, but you can see just the way they're playing, the way that it's almost like we're talking about Arsenal and they have some kind of strategy, and Man United don't. You can see Chelsea do, like in the way they want to play. They've got good players. They want to play good football. I think his goal was really good. The one-touch play, the little layoff from Abraham. I just think he's got a lot of good players, and it just takes time to gel when you make so many signings. But once they all gel, I think they'll definitely be a force to be reckoned with. I wouldn't put it past them making an assault on the league, I must say.
I mean, he's a player that we specifically spoke about when saying that Chelsea were no good in the league, and I'm just looking at the statistics for Thiago Silva. His Premier League debut, so his Chelsea debut was against Barnsley in the League Cup, which was a 6-0 win. We can kind of discount that, whatever, it's Chelsea versus Barnsley. But then his Premier League debut was against West Brom, which was the game that was 3-3. Obviously, not a good debut, but since then, he's played 4 lots of 90 minutes and not conceded a single goal. Obviously, those games have been against Palace, Sevilla, Man United, and Burnley. Now, I think 3 of those, not to be mean to Burnley, but 3 of those you could definitely say that you'd probably expect Chelsea to concede a goal based on the last 2 seasons. I know it coincides with Edouard Mendy dropping in goal there as well, but I think that's something that we're going to have to watch this year, is that actually Thiago Silva might be a little bit better than we all gave him credit for back sort of 3 or 4 podcasts ago. And yeah, if you keep racking up clean sheets like that, the stats speak for themselves. So yeah, I think Chelsea probably are slowly kind of getting into quite a good position to mount some sort of charge on the league. But again, it's so open at this point, and there's so many players and there's so many teams that can challenge for this league, that it's a really exciting year, I think, for the Premier League. Any closing thoughts on Chelsea from you, Greg? No, not really. Who's the best team in London at the moment, Tom? As an objective outsider.
Tottenham at the moment are the best team in London. But
good job at John's internet's playing up. He's not heard you say
I can hear you. I can hear you. I haven't frozen.
On current form, but I wouldn't put it past them to finish third place in a London mini league by the end of the year.
What are we doing?
Yeah. Well, we'll see where that goes. Let's do our social media roundup then for the show today. We'll go back over all the topics that we've covered. We'll do same as last week, where we'll just kind of get one person's thoughts on each thing. So I will come to John first on the Arsenal thing, and then Tom on Liverpool, etc., and Greg on Tottenham. So you'll get your own club to talk about, and I'll try and think of a question on the fly when we're doing it. So I'll start it now. Hello and welcome to the social media roundup for BTF 55. First up, we've got United versus Arsenal. This was 1-0 to Arsenal. John, is Partey the man that will replace Patrick Vieira finally?
He is indeed. He dominated the midfield. He bodied Pogba. It's all looking good at the moment. Great win. We dominated the game, and it's good to see Arsenal finally be a top 6 club, because it's a good few years. So happy days.
Nice. Next up, we have Liverpool taking a 2-1 win against West Ham, coming back from behind. Obviously going through a rocky spell without Virgil van Dijk at the back. But Tom, how do you think things are looking for Liverpool at the moment?
Yeah, positive, riding out this mini crisis, and with Greg Holland's lookalike, Nat Phillips at the back, the only way is up.
Let's go over to Greg then. Who made his return to scoring form in the Premier League?
This Donny, the greatest man. Greatest man ever. Once you see those clicking into place, he's going to be back on form. Tottenham, we didn't play the best football against Brighton, but we got the win, and a win is a win is a win. Keep getting those, then we're going to do very well this season.
And lastly on that, the big question on everyone's lips, is he shorter than he used to be? Quick rip around, John.
Internet cut off there, didn't hear you.
I think we'll leave it at that then. You didn't miss anything. Let's go on. Everton knocked off their perch at the top of the Premier League. Richarlison is expected back, I think, in the team this weekend to face Manchester United. Is he the missing puzzle piece, or is James more important? And John, we'll come to you for that. Hopefully you heard me.
Yeah, James is key, but Richarlison, when then runs in behind, creates a lot of space for the team, makes the pitch long, and I just think they need him back badly.
Yeah, and our final point in the social media roundup is Chelsea and the run of clean sheets that they're currently on at the moment. Tom, I'm going to come to you on this one. The question is, who's more important to that Chelsea run of clean sheets? Is it Thiago Silva, or is it the new man in goal, Edouard Mendy?
Yeah, I definitely think it's Mendy. You can see what happens over at Anfield when you put a ropey keeper in goal, the whole defence goes to pot and totally loses their heads. So just getting a safe pair of hands in net has probably been the main factor for me.
Nice. Well, that is the social media roundup for BTF 55. Please do check out the entire show, which is available on YouTube and also Spotify and all other good podcast providers. Okay, lads. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the show today. It's been another good one. We've gone over by a couple minutes this week, so every week we're getting closer to hitting it directly on that hour limit, but we have to gradually bring that time down. Greg, always ask you this question for some reason, but any big plans for the week other than that thing that's happening on Thursday?
Not a fucking thing, mate.
No, nice. Tom, thoughts on the Atalanta game tomorrow?
Yeah, could be the most difficult one of the three in the group. So gonna need another big performance.
Yeah, and Johnny Mills plans to post any more thirst traps on Instagram?
Any what?
Any more thirst traps on Instagram? We saw your amazing post this week. Great progress.
No more of those. That was a one-off. That was a one-off teaser.
Are you hitting the weights at home?
Looking chiseled, mate.
Just doing it, yeah. Just doing a few workouts. A few little bits and pieces.
You're looking good, man. Looking very good. All right, well that ends BTF 55. It's been a good show. Thanks for joining me, guys, and we'll see you all next week. Bye. There we go.
Man, sorry, lad.